Are you ready to learn what red flags keep an eye out for when looking for love?
Then we got you covered. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the podcast where we unpack reality TV and call out the bullshit.
So that you show up confidently while dating and in relationships. Welcome to Ditch the Script.
I love it.
Hello.
Hey, that happened really quickly.
Really fast.
Welcome.
I looked up and I was like, does that really say 31?
Yeah. Oh, it sure does. Welcome. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, bitch. How are you?
I'm good. When this airs, it's going to be on Labor Day Monday.
Happy Labor Day, everybody.
Happy Labor Day, everyone. I'm not taking tomorrow off. Are you?
Yeah. I have one client and then I told myself.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I'm trying, girl. I'm trying to tidy it up over here.
Let's take a brief moment to give you some credit for the boundary setting that you have learned and been working on for a while now. And you're doing it. Oh my God.
I'm fucking doing it. Ooh, awkward
yeah, you
burp
sure
there.
Are.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really funny. I think I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Everything that I had to work on when it comes to healing and anxious attachment style and relationships, I've had to revisit all of that with my business again.
Oh,
because
isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I remember there was a period of time, early 2021, where I was like, oh my God, I'm anxiously attached to my business. I literally had that thought where I was like, I am putting my value and my worth into this, and that's not the vibe, But it took me a minute to bring that awareness around. And so then I started re-navigating all that. But boundaries, as you were saying, is something that I was like, well, in order to be a great practitioner, in order to have a successful business, I need to work overtime. I need to do that. I need to, violate my own contracted boundaries, literally in the contract. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll answer messages at 11 o'clock at night. I'll answer messages on the weekend. And so something that I've really been working on this year is tidying all of that up. And part of that is scheduling mailing holidays into my into my business. I am taking this off. So
good for you.
Yeah. So the client I'm seeing tomorrow, we were really intentional about it. She's a school teacher, so she has the day off. And lately I've been wanting to go deeper in the work, but we can't when she's already jumping into a session out of school and is not in a good space, So we're taking advantage of her day off as well so that we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of some of the things that are coming up. Yeah.
I want to call out our hustle and grind culture that just absolutely does not serve us, but capitalism at large.
Oh my God.
It's the only thing that serves us. And we all sort of are we all have absorbed the American no days off mentality from lots of different places. Sometimes it's just society at large. A lot of times it's our parents. And a lot of times it comes from your upbringing, what was modeled for you, because a lot of us didn't grow up with an exceptional amount of privilege or an abundance of financial resources in their household. So a lot of us who may be listening to this probably started working very young to contribute to their families, or saw their parents work multiple jobs to keep things comfortable and afloat. Right. And I just want to let people know that I see you, I understand where this comes from for us. And also it's so difficult to sustain and it's so unhealthy, work ethic does not equal working all of the time.
No. Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel shame to relax.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in a very toxic way wear I worked 18 hours yesterday as if it was a badge of honor. You know what I mean?
Because our society rewards it.
Do they? Other than great job, you're such a valued employee, pat on the back. They don't pay livable wages the majority of the time. They don't give you extra vacation days.
You're so right. And they will take advantage of you.
100%.
They will take advantage of you.
And that's the thing is the second you show an employer that you'll do that, they're gonna anticipate that of you. Like that expectation is now ingrained. Oh yeah, this person will take care of it because they always take care of it, or they always work overtime and they never tell me no. They never set a boundary. They never say this is what I'm prioritizing right now. So it's like we have to be better. And I'm talking to myself too right now, but like we have to be better about what is my own threshold, what is my own tolerance, what are my own needs, and then move forward and actually equip our work environments with that knowledge too, right? Like, hey, I'm feeling under the weather. This is my capacity today. Hey, I'm feeling great today. I'm going to take on a little bit extra, or I have this coming up and this is what I need to do. So it's like, if we can take that time to just gain that own self-awareness, our podcast always comes back to self-awareness. It really does.
Yeah, it sure is. I feel like it's how it started too. It's like, it's sort of rooted in like the self-awareness that you and I have both like developed for ourselves in our own lives and being like, oh, this needs to be shared,
So true.
And it's true. We should be sharing these resources. We should be having these conversations with one another so that we can sort of like, tackle we need to sort of enter counterculture, and by doing that, it means like normalizing a lot of this stuff, to say like, we should be creating PM boundaries. We shouldn't be working past 10 PM. We shouldn't be, waking up at 7 AM and immediately checking emails. It shouldn't be the first thing that you do, like I think, and you're right to question, like, does society really even reward that type of work ethic? And it doesn't. You're right. There are no extra bonuses that come with working your ass off and being a quote good employee, end quote. Because in reality is like, it's sort of bragging rights, and that's really all you get. And people can never say, oh, this person doesn't work hard, but that's really all you get. Is that going to help pay your bills? No, it's not. Is it going to give you time back to spend with your partner or your family or your children or your friends? No, it won't. And I just I want us to be mindful of that, and exactly what you just said, which is like, if you start a job, a lot of us believe that when we start a new job, it's like, this is the time to be super reliable and to like make sure that they know that they can trust me and that they made the right hire in me. And so what we end up doing is working overtime, saying yes to absolutely everything, and being this absolute yes person. And it fucks you, because then when you realize that you want to when you want to create more balance in your life, it's not that you can't have those conversations and you can't say like, okay, listen, I need to change how I'm doing things. Otherwise I'm going to burn out. If you have a good supervisor, they will hear that and they will support you.
Agreed.
But a lot of us don't think it's safe to say that. It doesn't feel like an option. So you just never set those boundaries, and then you burn out, and then you wonder why you're wanting to quit, and you wonder why your bosses don't care about you, and you wonder why everyone takes advantage of you. And it's like, you taught them how they could treat you. You did that.
And okay, so I talk about this all the time. We teach people how to treat us, and it's so true, because it's like, if we set the precedent that we will work overtime, that we will do things like, I hate saying this, but outside of our job description, and I'll talk about why I hate saying that in a second. But
yeah, I'm curious.
When we take on all of these extra things as a means to prove our worth, see what I'm saying? Like, it's the same wound that shows up in relationships, in work-life balance, in every aspect. So it's like, I have no shame around being very honest about like everything I had to heal to get a healthy relationship. I've had to heal to have a healthy, sustainable business, and I'm still going to be healing that, new level, new devil, like I always say. But it's true. We train people how to treat us. And there's a painful truth that a lot of my clients, and I'm sure a lot of your clients, have to kind of go through, and me, by the way, in my own healing journey, is that when we have been accustomed to being a certain way, like we are a people pleaser and we've been being a people pleaser for the majority of our lifetime, the second we start setting boundaries, the people in your life who aren't respectful, who maybe are very just accustomed to you being that way, aren't going to like your new boundaries, aren't going to like the new and improved version of you. And so unfortunately, this doesn't always happen, but sometimes there are some friend breakups that occur, because it's like, if they've been subjecting themselves to some form of, again, over responsibility or working overtime or whatever it is, you know, there's going to come a point in that relationship where as that person starts to heal, they're like, wait a second, I need to prioritize my needs, and the other person's not gonna like that. So it's like, yeah, I just wanted to say that unfortunately, like, yes, that can happen, but the good news with that, although it can be painful, because I do want to acknowledge that and validate that, I also want to say it's a win, because at some point that would have happened. And now, sooner is better than later, because now you get to move forward with the awareness of like, okay, this is how this person is. This is the, you know, boundaries I'm going to set in my life. And now you get the opportunity to create new, respectful, loving friendships that don't anticipate you putting, you know, yourself second all the time or whatever, working overtime or taking on their emotions or whatever it is, you know? The reason I don't like saying outside of the job description is because I'm such a believer of teamwork makes the dream work. And so I'm happy to go outside of my job description when it's necessary. But I think too often necessary is different than being taken advantage of. That's why.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if there's an all hands on deck approach within your team and everyone is on board and everyone is contributing to that, yes, step outside of your job description because shit needs to get done. But if it's just you and you alone and all you're getting from doing extra work with no extra pay or extra incentive is like just to say I'm a valuable employee, like you gotta check in with yourself about that and make some changes. It's so interesting that the like attachment stuff that you're talking about as it relates to your relationship with a job, and not you specifically, but all of us, like our relationships to our jobs can be so reflective of the same struggles that we have in our relationships, platonic or romantic. And
always,
I was thinking about why. I'm curious what you think. The first thing that came to mind was just that like it's these arenas that trigger our sense of self-worth.
Always. Yep.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's like, look, we all seek romantic relation. Like, let's just draw the comparison. We seek romantic relationships for what? Camaraderie and companionship and love and sex and like all that good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we chase jobs for what? Money, security, insurance in some cases, which don't get me started on that.
But it's also like skill sharing, and it's also
skill
like
sharing,
contributing to a community.
Yeah. And so what these two things have in common is, you know, however I show up, there's going to be some kind of correlation with the end result, right? And that's true. Like, please hear me. That's absolutely true. And that's why we need to be aware of, is what I'm doing healthy or am I overextending myself? Because whether it's romantic relationships, platonic friendships, work, whatever, parental relationships, when we get to a point to where we're overextending, where it's like, I'm taking responsibility for their emotions, for their scheduling issues, I'm taking responsibility for this person's workload or whatever, it's the same thing. It's like I'm doing that as a means to be seen and valued even more, right? And again, if you're doing it because it's like, look, I understand this coworker of mine is taxed, so like let me take something off their plate. That's one thing if it's temporary, but if it is a pattern, that's something you need to pay attention to. So yeah, you know, relationships are relationships. We all are seeking, you know, to be seen, heard, understood, and validated. And when we, you know, whether it's through, I need to be the employee of the month, I need to be, you know, the MVP of this office, or I need to be the MVP of this relationship, and I need to convince this person of my worth so that they love me in return. It's a fine line difference between the two.
So true.
Yeah.
Speaking of self-awareness, what's your favorite way to like check in with yourself, to like have some of these conversations with yourself when you notice that you're feeling challenged or you're feeling burnt out and you're like, okay, I need to sort of assess the situation and see what I can do about this? How do you like to check in with yourself?
Parts work, baby. This is my freaking parts work. I did this last night too. Oh my God.
Can you give like a synopsis, an example of what does that look like?
Yeah. So, okay, I'll give an example. I'm trying to think which example I should give. So in like, okay, in real time, this happened a couple weeks ago, but in real time, like I was at work, I was in my office at the hotel, and I got an email that was like really nasty. People, there's so many cyber bullies. Like, I'm also just flabbergasted at how mean can be on the internet, whether it's email or social media. It's like there's no rules. It's like, would you talk to me face to face this way? Like, I'm just appalled. But anyway, I get this email that was very triggering and very rude to me, and like the thing that this person was upset about isn't even my fault. But it's like, I'm the messenger, so people love to kill the messenger, I guess. And so I get this email and I feel immediately my body responding to it. Like, right? Like, I call it my Hulk smash. Like it just, I get this intense feeling in my chest of like, oh my God, how effing dare you, is like this kind of like energy I get. And so I'm sitting there and I like pause for a second because I read this and I feel this come up. And so I pause, which, by the way, that's step one. Practice the fucking pause, right? So I feel that come up and I'm like, ooh. And I take a breath and I do close my eyes. I'm big into closing my eyes to confront my internal world for me. And that doesn't need to happen, like, to each their own. I have clients who feel unsafe closing their eyes, which is totally valid. Keep your eyes open, soften your gaze, whatever you need. But I do that. I look inwards and I'm just like, okay, let's go. I was like, who needs to speak up is really, like, I've done so much parts work is I kind of have a boardroom that I envision of all my little parts that I've met before. And I open the floor. I'm like, who needs to speak up? And 9 times out of 10, it's little Alex. It's the inner child. She's about 7. Yeah. And so in this instance, she's like, I'm getting yelled at for something that's not my fault. And that really hurts my feelings. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's why I was like so offended by this person's email. And so I take some time to just like comfort her. And I'm like, girl, yeah, that's so true. Isn't that like, come here. I cuddle her a lot, like in my mind's eye, like I have her in my lap a lot, play with her hair, whatever. Just like I would my niece. Yeah. It's a beautiful relationship I have with my inner child. I love that girl.
Well, but it's also a relationship that you've developed over time because for a while she wasn't speaking up. She didn't have that room to speak up.
I wasn't listening to her. I was not listening to her.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe she was speaking up, but you weren't.
She was screaming, but I was not creating space to listen. And so I took some time to, deal with that with her and just like really give that to her. And this all happened maybe within 45 seconds. Like, it's quick. Like, once you've done the work, it becomes more of an efficient process, because then what happened is I laughed out loud, like, to my environment with coworkers. And I was like, guys, you want to know something that really triggers me? And Sean, who we were talking about last week, he was in town. All of my coworkers are really into the inner work and mental health space. And so they were like, love this conversation already. And so I shared with them what was triggering. And then we all kind of had a laugh about it, which was it helped me diffuse that emotion even more. And so anytime that I like need to check in, and I'll do this in bed, I always do this before bed. I'll always do a parts check in, just like, hey guys, how's everyone doing? Does anyone need to voice anything? Like, it sounds crazy. It's the most beautiful thing ever. Like, it's just, I love parts work for that. Cause it's like, we all have layers. We really do. And it's like, when we can give voices to these different aspects of ourselves and actually allow them the floor to speak up, it gives us way more insight about our internal world than we would even think is possible. So
it allows us to like sort of pause the reaction that is sort of always staying with us.
That's
so interesting. Thank you for sharing that, first of all. No. I was going to share. Mine looks a little bit differently because I don't know if I tend to have like a burst of a feeling. I tend to it's a slow graze of a change in my mood and how I experience everything around me. So so if you take 2 days that are exactly the same with the same routines, and one day everything like waking up and making breakfast and taking a walk with the dog feels beautiful and amazing. And you're like, I love this. I love what's going on here. And then the same day with the same routine, the same walk, the same breakfast and coffee is like nothing feels good. Everything's shit. And to some people that might just be a change of mood. But for me, that's that's an invitation to check in about like what's going on. So I don't know if I want to try parts work in the way that you just described it, because it sounds a bit more structured than the way that I like to have conversations with myself. But what I do right now is notice that I'm in a bad mood, because my bad mood is like it's not my baseline. And I associate anyone who's like sour to boot, like that. Do you boo? Be sour. Like, we need that energy in this world sometimes. But for me, it's just not my neutral.
It's not.
I'm usually like bouncy and like available.
Yeah.
I'm easily excitable. So if I'm in a
dog-like energy.
mood, yeah, I do. So if I'm in a shitty mood, it's like I have to create space to be alone, first of all, and minimize auditory distractions, because you know how we'll tend to like put on a television or music or a podcast or something to just fill the air. And don't get me wrong, I love that. I need that. It helps me move through work, chores, responsibilities, the like.
Life in general.
Life in general. But when I need to check in with myself, I need no noise, or I need white noise, so I can be by the water and think and reflect. But I cannot do it with television on or music on. I have to just like be alone with my thoughts. And I really just like to ask myself the questions of like, what's bothering me? Yeah. And I just try to be as honest as possible, because I don't need to, if you get in front of someone and you say, like, what's bothering you? And that person's like, that person's going to be like, they're going to give you a packaged version of, version of what they're going to express, to like tell you what they're feeling, but also to not worry you and not make you feel like you need to help or step in, or, oh my God, like what's going on with them? Now I'm scared. Should I check in with them later? All of those things. And sometimes I find that we actually do that to ourselves as well. Like, it's hard to just get honest and be really, really upfront and be like, this is why I'm pissed off. But I usually try to start there of like, what's bothering me? What have I not confronted? And then give myself the opportunity to just feel that and be like, okay, valid. That's valid. That's how the fuck you feel. And then I will give myself the room to just be like, cause I'm a solution focused type of gal. If one's present, I won't force a solution, but I'll just give myself an opportunity to be like, what would make me feel better? Yes. And then I'll assess that and be like, is that fair? Is that fair to me? Okay, so I want this to be better in this, arbitrary, easy to fix way. Is that fair to me? Is that fair to the other person that might be involved? Is that fair to the group? Is that fair to my client? And then I will sort of reconfigure that to create an opportunity to intervene that is serving what is bothering me, but is also respectful of the other entities that I'm engaging with.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that. It's really just like, if we're going to take both of these examples and boil it down, it's just allowing your inner world to speak up for itself. It's asking the questions of like, what do you need? What's upsetting you? And just asking yourself, like, why am I feeling this way? And like, what were the events or the scenario, like whatever occurred to make me feel this way? Even just that moment of like, oh, that tracks. That helps us to kind of breathe and regulate even there, because it's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense why I'm in a pissy mood, because I was looking forward today and I burned my tongue on my coffee and then my dog shat on my shoe, and like, Jesus, like
that's
it's been a morning.
That's exactly the feeling. It's like once me personally, if I give myself the space to open that up, actually, I've seen you do this as well, just when we're talking and you're like working out something out loud, like it shifts it neutralizes like what's going on.
I love that
with
word.
Your nervous system and your bodies.
Neutralizes. It's true. It's like the baking soda of, mental health care, because it's like, I think so. Okay. I know. So many of us feel shame around feeling a certain way. It's like, and I talk about this all the time. Maybe this should go. I said this last week on our episode. I'm like, this should be written on my tombstone. I'm taking it back. This should be written on my tombstone. if
We're changing
beating, yeah, we're changing, or maybe both. If beating yourself up worked, it would have worked by now. It doesn't fucking work. So can we stop? It's like we feel shame around like, oh, I woke up and I'm not feeling good today. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm such an idiot. I have such a great life. Why can't I be happy? And da da da. And it's like, okay, is that going to make you feel good? No. Right? Is having a hard conversation with your partner and then like walking away and like processing the feedback they gave you, be like, God, they're so right. I'm the shittiest partner ever. I don't deserve them. I don't deserve to experience love and happiness. Like, is that going to serve you? No.
No, Jesus.
And like, I used two pretty intense examples there, but like, it happens all the time. Like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to be tired. Why am I tired? It's like, oh my gosh, probably because you work, you know, in America with this crazy ass grind culture that we, you know, spoon feed you since the moment you come out of the womb. Like, maybe that's why you feel shame around taking a break, you know?
Exactly.
Like, it's funny. I mean, it's not funny. Okay. It's fun. This is that saying like tragedy is comedy, because it's so true and it's so relatable. We all can kind of like laugh about it, but let's also be serious and understand we need to allow ourselves to get rid of the shame to actually move forward and create lives that are sustainable and happy and healthy.
Yeah. When in doubt, allow yourself to be honest with yourself in those moments. So, because we don't need to apply that shame. Other people will do that for us.
Yeah.
I'd like to create an inner world to allow myself to be raw and unapologetic and speak the fuck up for myself, because I'm not ready to invite other opinions or other perspectives. I want to work that out and then figure that out for myself and like get a little bit closer and then start inviting people, because I am stuck and I do need help. Right. And when you describe like holding that conference table space with all of your parts, you allow yourself that same opportunity to be honest for all of the, like just to use like this younger version of you as an example, like she is screaming and we're not also just going to let her react out loud for the rest of the day, but she needs a place to be able to be like, I need to say something. And we use that as information for the person who's activated in real life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's really, and I say this all the time, it's not the 30-year-old version of me that's triggered. It's the 7-year-old version of me. So me beating the 30-year-old version of me up isn't going to solve the problem. What needs to happen is I need to go back to that 7-year-old version of me and be like, hey girl, hey, what do you need? What can I do for you? You know, like that's what it is. Mental health as described by Alex. Like, it's so true though. It's like, it's not me that's like this. The trauma isn't didn't happen to me as a 30-year-old. It happened to me as a child. So it's like, we got to look back on, you know, whatever the root cause of that trigger is to be able to like suss it out.
I just love the idea of her responding as saying, hey girl, help.
Yeah.
Hey girl, help me.
Yeah. Basically. Not in those words, but yes.
Yeah.
Hey girl, help. I love that. I need a mug that says that.
Hey girl, help. We did a deep dive intro because today is one of our Q&A podcast episodes that we're going to be doing. Yeah. So just a little bit of context of what's going on. We are building up to the eventual Bachelor in Paradise premiere for this season.
So excited about it.
We're so excited. So Bachelor in Paradise airs September 27th. So we will be following the show week by week and breaking down those episodes. And we're so excited because this encapsulates a lot of like players from recent Bachelorette seasons that you and I have started to follow with each other. Now, I know I missed Clayton's season, full transparency.
Dude, I'm low-key, I'm glad we're bringing this up because I think I might binge it. I think I might binge both Clayton's and Gabby and what's her face? Rachel? What's her name?
Rachel. Mm-hmm.
I might binge all of those.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
just
so
to have context.
It would be good. I've been watching Gabby and Rachel's. I'm all caught up with that. I haven't watched all parts of Clayton's. I'd started it, but it was just, it was really hard for me. Clayton was annoying to me as a bachelor because he was just horny and, which is not his fault. him being horny was not his fault, but him like being horny with like women that like truly were manipulative was really frustrating to watch. And if we were covering it on the podcast, obviously I would have stuck it out, but I just couldn't do it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to need to like catch up just so that I have a little bit of context for whoever from those seasons pops up on VIP. But like, I'm stoked about it. I'm so excited about it.
We have a lot of dudes from Katie's season.
I'm excited. I'm so excited about Michael, the dad. Oh my God, I'm so excited about Michael.
I was going to bring him up. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep you posted on when that's airing and everything that we're doing leading up to it. But until then, we're going to be doing, Q&A based episodes. So reminder, if you want to ask a question, you can always just go to our social medias and hit our DMs. So you can go to Ditch the Script Pod. You can also go to Alex's Instagram page, the Alex Scott.
Yeah.
That would be a great place to dump it. She's pretty active over there. You could go to BDatch too, but it's there's not much going on. The other place that you can go for asking questions or applying for a mini session is you can go to our website, www.ditchthescriptpod.com, and put it all in there.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we have a few things we're going to pull from past inquiries off the Ditch the Script Pod website. So, but yeah, drop us your questions so we can answer them for you in the next couple weeks. And then we're going to go to Paradise, baby. Okay, side note really quick.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What's his name? I'm having a blank. David Spade? What
Okay.
Isn't that the guy that
the comedian?
he hosted? Yeah, the comedian.
Yeah.
Who also played Emperor Cusco on
David Spade.
Yeah.
David Spade.
He's my favorite. I love him.
He's so funny.
He was so funny on the last season of Bachelor in Paradise when he hosted those first 2 weeks. So, do you know if there's a new host that's like officially slated, or is it going to be kind of a smorgasbord like last time? Have you seen anything?
I have not. Maybe if someone's been listening to this and is more dialed in on the Bachelor Nation gossip, please, let us know.
Because full transparency, he was the highlight of the last VIP for me. Like, I thought he was so funny, the way he like made fun and like just low key roasted everyone as they arrived. Oh my God, I loved him.
We need that.
Great.
We need that.
He was great. Yeah. So we'll see.
The theme of this episode so far is full transparency. Full transparency.
Oh, have I said that 80 times? Sorry.
Oh, I have. No, I have as well. I opened an Instagram story like later last week that I was like full transparency. It's just it's our buzzword. It's our buzz.
It's us
statement.
being fully transparent.
Yeah. 100%.
100. Back to that too.
Okay,
cool.
What are we talking about today?
Questions. So first, let's start with trauma bonds. We got an inquiry just about trauma bonds, so we can like chit chat on what they are, how to tell if you're in one.
Okay,
and what
does it
about
mean to trauma bond?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I feel like there's so many ways you can define it. The way I defined a trauma bonded relationship are two people coming together where you are mimicking trauma you've already experienced, although that is very subconscious. A lot of ways people end up trauma bonding is talking about trauma and being like, oh my God, we're the same person. And then they bond over that, right? So I think the severity when we talk about like a trauma bonded relationship, my mind goes to the relationships that are acting out wounds that we have trauma associated with, and it is mimicking that pattern over and over again. And so that creates this intense bond. How do you define a trauma bond?
No, I think that's a really that's a useful description of that. That would happen for two people to trauma bond that haven't experienced the same trauma. When I also think about trauma bonding is like, this is going to sound really awful, but like, let's say two people who are in a really serious car accident together, and their entire relationship is sort of like, it's always rooted in that experience, that shared experience, everything that they sort of like conversations tend to come back to it. I guess a good way to notice if you're in a trauma bond with someone that you've had a traumatic experience with is if you really only feel your connection is best and deepest when you are like revisiting
Reminiscing.
that
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been in one of those because like as I'm describing it, I'm like, oh God, like that feels so close to home. I haven't fully unpacked what the experience is and where it comes from, but I do know that there are some people that I've been connected with where I wanted our relationship to like flourish and like become something that was like in all ways fulfilling, but I tended to only feel good when we were talking about something that actually brought out the worst sides of both of us.
Always. Always.
Yeah.
And that's the magnifying glass right there, babe. Like, if you are you want to know a really quick way to understand if you're in a trauma bond? If it brings out the worst version of you and you're crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I specifically remember when I was with my narcissistic ex, I did shit I never would have. I'm ashamed to admit, but I'll tell you guys here because I'm over the shame of it because I get why it was happening. But in real time, I was humiliated. Like, I remember one time I like showed up at his workplace completely unannounced because I was so mad that I can't even remember what he did, but I like needed to confront him and he was ignoring my stuff and I knew where he was. So I just showed up at his work and I was like, let's talk. Like crazy shit that I would I've never done that ever in a relationship, but because
that's
of how
really not like you.
No, but because of how triggering he was and how it was hitting on old trauma, I did shit that isn't normal for me. And so that's one real quick way to realize like, ooh, I am in a trauma bond or unhealthy toxic AF relationship. If it's bringing out your own crazy, if you're like, I do not like who I am with this person, I'm doing things that I never would do in any other relationship, or this is the other way, you're not telling your friends about what you're doing or what's happening, because that's huge too. Also with this narcissistic ex, because we were on, off, all my friends that knew we had been dating, I stopped telling them about it and I kept the relationship a secret because I had drugged them through the mud of all the drama with me that I eventually just started like trying to save them by sparing them the details of my personal life in that way. Which never worked, by the way, because one girl who I love her. I need to call her. I miss her so much. But she was a good friend at Disney, and it's been a minute since we've chit-chatted. But she very much knew. She was like, I know what's going on. I'm not an idiot. I know you're not telling me about it. And I was like, girl, you got me. Like, she's like caught red-handed. Like, and we kind of just laughed about it because it was like, yeah, totally. Like, you know, but she knew why I wasn't talking about it anymore. You know, and she was with me through that entire experience. But those are two huge, like really quick indicators if you're in a trauma bonded relationship.
Do you think that if you recognize that you're in a trauma bonded relationship, or at least especially relationship where you feel like the only parts of this relationship in which I feel connected to this person is when we're fighting or we're talking about something terrible that's happened, or like the most miserable parts of ourselves are exposed and we tend to like join in those moments, but otherwise nothing else is clicking. Is that something that you can repair within your relationship, or is really like the most suitable option to be like, I have to free myself from this and therefore free this other person as well?
Ooh, I love this question. So first of all, I want to talk about feeling most connected while fighting, because that is such a thing. A lot of people, if you come from a household where it was very dysfunctional, where there was a lot of toxic fighting, intensity, like walking on eggshells type environment, you most likely will pick fights to feel connected because that is how you felt an emotional charge growing up. And so if you find yourself like, I'm feeling like I'm ready to fight, which by the way, Ekin-Su said during Love Island, and I was like, okay, let's pay attention to that. Because it's like, if you feel this like churning of like, ooh, like I'm in a mood and like, I just want to like come at you. If you're feeling that, that's saying way more about you than your relationship. So just want to throw that out there. But the short answer to, you know, can we repair, or is it best for me to just separate myself? Here is the one and only question that you need to answer, and you need to have this conversation really for them to give you an honest answer. Both parties in a trauma bond, both parties, not one party, both. I'm being obnoxious about this for a reason. Both parties must want and desire for the relationship to become healthy, and both parties must be open to admitting their faults and weaknesses and where they need to improve, and actually take action to improve that. Not just talk about it, not just make empty promises. There needs to be quite literally a conversation around, this is what I need, this is what you need, these are the action steps I'm going to take to fulfill that, vice versa, and now let's go together. If one person is not willing to say, this is my part, this is what I need to work on, this is how I'm going to work on it, bye, Felicia. Because there's no amount of you loving or you working on yourself that's ever going to have that relationship become stable and healthy. It takes two. It takes two, always.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Like, and you have to know the difference between someone who's just sharing, like, yep, I hear you. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to get better. I'm going to stop doing this thing. Like, if you don't see it, they're not going to make that change. If you've already asked and they continue to carry on with like the behavior that leaves you in the type of, you know, shittiest parts of your relationship, as we're describing, like you have to cut your losses. Yeah.
And it's not good enough to say like, I'm going to change this thing. It needs to be how. Great. Awesome. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you that you're stating like you would like to change this. So my question for you is how? What's your plan? What action are you going to take to fix that? Yeah. You know? And like, get curious about it. Like, it doesn't need to be this like, well, tell me how. Like, don't go at them like that with that energy, because that'll just be like, ooh, fighting words. Yeah. But when you're honestly having a sit down conversation with your partner around like, this is the issue and this is what we need to fix, the next part is, how are we going to do this together? Right. The Olympic, like any kind of team, think of your relationship as a team. Basketball, volleyball, baseball, hockey, curling. I don't care. Pick your poison. Pick your team. Pick your team. Every single team that ever exists does not go into a game saying, we're going to win. Yeah. They have practice. They have plays that they practice. You're going to go over here with the ball and I'm going to go over there and you're going to pass it. There is literally intention behind how they show up. It is the same thing in relationships. It is the same. There needs to be a discussion about tactics and practice.
You want to know what sports teams also do? I think this is hilarious coming from two people who are like not sports enthusiasts.
Cannot kick a ball to save my life. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. But what sports teams do is they also watch their older games and they look for their mistakes.
There you go. See? Sports analogies, baby.
Sometimes they really work. Like, always. You review the tapes, and it's not this gotcha. It's not about gotcha. It's about like, what are the things that we collectively have struggled with in the past that led to our like worst rifts with each other? Like, what do we need to do differently? You have to have these conversations when you're not escalated. Something that I think couples really get in the worst way about, oh my God, I hear this all the time and it makes me fucking cringe, is a couple who is like, we have problems. And the minute that everyone is chilled, things are no longer escalated, people are feeling better, it's like, okay, did you have that conversation about your problems? Like, now that things are over? And they're like, but things are good. I don't want to rock the boat.
Oh, no. Oh my gosh, I'm with you. I don't like that either.
I don't want to rock the boat. Things have been really good. I haven't seen anything. And then what happens? The history repeats itself. The pattern just continues. And then you're back at square zero and you continue to get into these fights, and you're no longer in a neutral place to be able to have these conversations that we're encouraging you to have. Like, you cannot play the tapes and review what's been going on and why is your relationship keep getting stuck in these cycles while you're in the fight. While you're in the fight, all defenses are way up. Way up. So you have to have these conversations when things are feeling better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that's like the dose of fucking truth, but you have to interrupt the good time, especially while things are calm, you're home, you're chilling. I don't care if it's the best weekend of your life together and it's finally felt good. That's the time to be like, hey, we got to talk about our stuff.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because in order to make the, oh my God, this is the best time, our relationship is so good, more consistent, you have to have those conversations. If you don't, you're
Yeah.
quite literally self-sabotaging, because you know what will happen if you don't. You've already done
Yeah.
that and been on that
Yeah.
merry-go-round. So
Yep.
try something new. Put different ingredients into the relationship for a different result. Ooh, Betty Crocker, baby, right?
Betty Crocker.
You gotta,
No box.
you gotta throw, you gotta throw new ingredients up in there. So yeah, I feel you. And I know it's uncomfortable, but we need to be better about conflict resolution. Like, if we really want relationships to be happy, healthy, and thriving, we need to get comfortable with the discomfort of conflict resolution. Because it's
Yeah.
it's never gonna be like a cakewalk. It's never gonna be like, oh my gosh, yeah, so this is how we messed up, this is how okay, great, and this is what we're gonna do moving forward, go team. It's not gonna feel like that, okay? But it doesn't need to feel like the end of the world, right? There can be
Yeah.
a happy middle around, like, okay, this is, what I'm gonna work on, this is what you're gonna work on, cool. Great, moving forward, let's do that. Okay, now what are we going to do today? Let's cuddle, let's repair, right? Repair attempts are huge, and we need to be better about those too. I don't care that it feels weird that you just had a fight and now you want to cuddle, but you shouldn't, quote unquote, cuddle because we just fought and we need to punish our partner by distancing ourselves. No, absolutely not. Cuddle your person post conflict.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's
Okay,
necessary.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So removing the factor about people who may want to just continue to punish their partner, I fully with you. Leave that away.
Okay.
If you have technically squashed the conflict, but you're not feeling like you want to cuddle your partner, is that an indicator that something is still not settled as far as what you brought into the conflict, like your personal feelings about the conflict? Like, is it possible that like those things weren't totally answered, or you don't feel totally better about that, and therefore it's like, I don't want you to be close to me?
It could. I mean, I can't say without a shadow of a doubt, like no or yes. But I think the other part of that is we need to understand when we have any kind of conflict, we go into our survival response. And so when we're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever, we aren't necessarily going to feel warm, fuzzy, connected feelings towards our partner, especially when our minds are perceiving them as the threat, right? So it's like, that's something that we need to figure out for ourselves, right? Because it's like, for me, like, I'll talk about myself as a personal example. When I've been in conflict with a partner and I feel like we've settled it or whatever, I crave that. I'm like, come give me a hug and tell me everything's going to be okay. Right. Like I want that so badly. And there have been moments where I've felt like I've desired that while simultaneously being like, but is now the right time? Like, so I end up like filtering myself and kind of building up this own resistance because of what should or shouldn't happen within a relationship. So I feel like there's some kind of societal conditioning, or it could be part of my own trauma. But like, actually 100% it's my own trauma. Now that I've said that, I had a very distinct childhood memory just pop up into my mind where I'm like, oh yeah, that is that. So let me just explain now that I have this newfound awareness, quite literally. When I would get in trouble as a child, I would be banished to my room, right? Like amongst other things. And there would be, the resolution was never really a resolution. It just kind of was like, and now we're going to sweep things under the rug and like move on with our lives. But there was no like apology. There was no repair. It was very rare if that ever even happened. And so now as an adult, I find myself mimicking that. It's like, I crave the cuddle, but I don't feel like I'm allowed to do that because of the conditioning of now I need to separate, I need to isolate, I need to do my own thing. And then when they're ready to come talk to me again, I'll let them do that. And so
Oh my God.
I literally just had all of that come up. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that's
I'm
helpful.
reacting. It's helpful for me because I think that's like that. My question sort of comes from what I notice about my own challenges after conflict, like in those moments. Like, I know it's so interesting. It's like, I know that like cuddling and reconnecting, especially like skin to skin contact, would feel really good and feels like a thing that I need. But I almost feel like I have to wait to be invited
Right.
And I was treated very similarly post,
Conflict with
childhood
family.
fuck up. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas
Oh my gosh,
I'm
it's so
curious,
interesting.
I'm curious to know if someone who had parents who were very loving post conflict, like, okay, honey, like, and this is no shade on anyone's parents, but like, by the way, let's be very honest with and give our parents a break here that generations tend to have their own new parenting phenomena come out. Like, this is the way to self-soothe your kid, which is turned into like, don't co-regulate them, which was the worst way to raise a baby. But so we need to give grace, right? Like, we're not coming for anyone, but I'm curious to know if someone was exposed to parents who were very touchy-feely post-conflict, like, okay, honey, like, this is what happened. We can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. Now come here. I love you, blah, blah, blah. If that is something that they naturally give to their partner within the relationship now. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to hear from you if you're a listener and you're like, yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
And I do find myself doing that.
I would love to know that too, because in our experience, clearly being of children of the same generation, it was very much like, get out of my sight. This is your punishment. Right.
Right.
And I agree with you. Like, something that I just want to let people know is that, like, your parents did the best with whatever tools that they had. Every single one of our parents were limited to a very varying degree. So like, it's not enough. This is a pet peeve that I have about like our culture in general sometimes, but it's not enough just to say like, my parents and my trauma is the reason for everything that I do that's like problematic or challenging or why I have all of these issues. It's like, that statement can be true. And also, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Oh my God. Have you watched The Morning Show on Apple TV?
No, but I've heard about it. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God,
it's
girl.
Not the same as watching it.
Yeah, it's great. Like, it's very good for mental health. There's so many great examples of all different types of toxic work culture, narcissism, like, so many amazing things. But there's a character in there, and I'm going to be vague about this, so to avoid spoilers, but she basically says to someone, I think in the second season, I can't even remember, but she's like, look, you're a grown-ass adult. Wounded children are wounded children. They have an excuse. But as an adult, you go to therapy. And I was like, yes, thank you. Yeah. She's like, I healed. I worked on my shit. Now you are an adult. You need to work on your shit. And it's like, it's so true. It's like, I'm with you. Like, there's so many, folks, and and it's trauma. Like, that's the thing, is the thing that's keeping you stuck in this victim mindset of like, oh my God, how can people treat me like this? I hear you. I feel you. I was that for so fucking long. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, why do I always pick the wrong guys? No guy ever treats me well. Da, da, da. And I was like, so stuck in that like analysis paralysis. And it was my own trauma, believing I don't have control over this, when it's like, wait a second, yes, I fucking do. I chose to go on a date with that person. So let me get really clear on why I'm choosing these people, right? So it's like, I hope that lands and inspires somebody, because for me, that's what I needed. Kind of the kick in the ass of like, look, I have way more control than I think I do over me and how I participate in this game of life. So let me own that, instead of like just allowing life to roll the dice for me all the time.
Yes, absolutely. I love that, because it encompasses some parts that I think are meeting like the developments of new age understanding of trauma and mental health, which is like acknowledging trauma, which for previous generations, they did not acknowledge their trauma. They did not bring any awareness to it. They ignored it. They were like, that's just the stuff of life. And they're not wrong about that. But also then it became our work to deal with it because they never dealt with their own shit. So yes, bringing awareness to our trauma and the things that we have been through that contribute to our worldview and our perspective of the world around us is very important. And using that information to assess what kind of control do you have in your life and moving forward. What kind of relationships do you want to have, whether it's romantic, whether it's familial, whether it's platonic, but it's not enough to just say, well, that's my trauma and you have to work around my triggers. No, sorry.
No, your triggers are your responsibility.
Yeah.
God, could you imagine if it was our job to not trigger people?
Well, a lot of people really feel that way.
Oh my God, I used to feel that way. that was that's a fawn response, by the way. Let's talk about it. People pleasing, let me shrink myself and be invisible to make space for your shit. Like, no, that's not the vibe. Like, you be you. Now, that doesn't mean you know, are a cyber bully and you're like, well, deal with your own triggers, right? Like, hold yourself
100%.
accountable, right? Don't use that as
try
an
to be
excuse.
a decent
human.
Be a decent person.
Yeah. But,
well, there's a difference between trauma informed and being an asshole.
Yes.
You know, like you can be trauma informed and no, I'm glad that you brought this up because I definitely don't want to give the message of like, you know, say whatever the fuck you want and, you know, everyone can they're just pussies if they can't handle it. No, first of all, that's incredibly problematic. But like being trauma informed, it's like you don't need to sugarcoat it, but like be a kind and considerate human being and be like, as your friend, this is what I'm concerned about, without holding that back, without shrinking just because you don't want to like rock someone's boat or shake them up to some degree.
Word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on trauma bonds? Should we jump to our next topic?
Sure. Yeah, let's go. We're gonna make this one a little bit shorter. It's gonna be a little bit shorter.
Okay, trigger. Well, I mean, we were just talking about triggers, so we can talk about like tracking triggers.
Okay, tracking triggers. Ooh. Okay, I don't know if I exactly know what that is on paper, but in my mind, I'm gonna need you to. But in my mind, so there's a way to like track your dreams to like create a bigger opportunity to experience lucid dreaming, where it's like you sort of detail a lot of your dreams quickly after waking up. That way you can sort of become more familiar with what is happening in your dreams so that you can recognize that you're in a dream while you're in a dream, and then you can lucid dream.
Right.
Is anything similar to that?
That is super fascinating, by the way, and I've never done that. I don't dream a lot, so but yeah, I guess kind of. Yes, very similar in the sense of like, okay, now that this just happened, let me pause, again, practice the pause and figure out. But I actually just made this trigger tracker sheet for clients, and it's so helpful. So if we think about this, you know, thoughts, actions, behaviors, right? And we're looking at like, okay, what's my trigger? That's going to be harder to come to in the moment unless you've been practicing awareness for a while. Then like me, like as I start to talk now, I'm like, oh wait, I can connect those dots really fast. But that's not where I was at the start, right? So a really helpful tool is kind of reverse engineering the reaction that you want to control. So like so for example, dishes in the sink is a very common trigger for a lot of people. There's this feeling of overwhelm that comes up when you see a bunch of dishes in your sink. So the dishes in the sink is the stimulus, right? But you might not know that. You might walk into your kitchen in the morning and then all of a sudden, like we were talking about before, you're in this shitty mood. So it's like, okay, the result is this shitty mood. What is the feeling that came before the shitty mood? All right, the feeling is overwhelmed. The feeling is frustration. The feeling is being taken advantage of, right? What's that feeling? And then what is the thought? Oh my gosh, I have so many dishes in my sink. Oh my gosh, I need to clean more. Oh my gosh, my partner isn't helping me clean around the house. What's the thought? And then the stimulus is dishes in the sink, right? So it's like when we can take the time to track backwards, you know, so I said thoughts, feelings, behaviors, that's going up the scale. Tracking backwards would be what's the behavior? What's the feeling? What's the thought? What is the stimulus? Like what is the actual event, words said that triggered me? Same thing with my email example before, right? It's like the reaction I felt in me, the behavior I wanted to participate in was coming back at that person, right? You're going to come at me for something that's not my fault. I'm going to come at you and put you in your place, right? That was the fight response I felt. The feeling was, honestly, the feeling that provoked the fight was feeling, you know, accused for something that wasn't my fault, right? What was the thought? How dare you? Not my fault. Check yourself. What was the stimulus? The email. So it's like when we can get really good at kind of like seeing in the external world, these are the behaviors I want to change. A lot of my anxious attachment styled folks, they're like, I blow my partner's phone up when I don't hear back from them. Okay, that's the behavior I want to change. What are the feelings? What are the thoughts? What is the stimulus? Right? So hopefully that helps. But that's
I
how I
love
like
that.
to track triggers.
I love that. It's also that's also described in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's like it's a CBT model
Awesome.
where you're describing it as like a singular planed line. CBT sort of draws it as a connected triangle, right?
Oh, cool.
And I love that because similar to what we were just talking about, it's like it's really important to be familiar with your triggers. And we've mentioned this in previous episodes, but that like you are allowed to have a response to your triggers. Like you are like you don't, to be fair, you don't get much of a choice in it. But in your assessment of how you organically respond to your triggers, those reactions that you're having, if that is something that you eventually in the long term want to control because it has become problematic in your relationship, that is going to be the most effective way to sort of assess the data and get a read on what's going on. Otherwise, it can just feel like a fucking mishmash of feelings and you did this and you're trying to hurt me and what's wrong with you. And it's sort of all of it's really informed from past experiences and past relationships that have really traumatized us. And none of it has much to do with the present or a successful future. Right. So it's like, I really appreciate that model because again, it's about collecting data. And for some of us, being able to see it as an experiment, even if you're not, scientifically based in your career or even as you were in school, seeing it, being able to look at things through an experiment lens allows us to sort of, for the time being, just for the purpose of assessing, remove a lot of our feelings away from the like gathering data period. And it's just like, how did I just react? What happened there? Exactly. What were the feelings that caused that reaction? What were the thoughts that incentivized those feelings? And what was the stimulus that triggered all of those thoughts? And I think if you were to do this with your partner, it would require both parties to be on the same side of this playing field. Back to our sports referencing, but you need to be on the same team.
Same jersey, baby. You're wearing the same jersey.
Exactly. Because it can't be your partner being like, you always do this. This is everything that, like, I can't stand about our fights. You need to fix this. You're doing this because you're so sensitive and you can't deal with dishes in the sink. And I'm going to tell you that again and again and again, that will never work. If we both want me to respond differently to the dishes in the sink, I'm going to need you to put my jersey on, come over this way, and me stop taking all of this so personally. And my partner needs to change their tone. I need to shift my perspective of what we're doing here together. And then we assess that data. And also, you better believe we're using this model on you too, baby. We're using it on you. We're going to talk about your own responses that I don't love.
Yeah. For real. And then at the end, we all get Otter Pops and orange slices.
And we cuddle.
Yeah. I will say this just to like add on before we move on to our next little thing we're going to chat about. Like, sometimes labeling emotions can be really hard, especially when you're not emotionally available to yourself. And I am speaking from personal experience. I'll never forget my first time in therapy. God bless him, Kevin Novotny. Shout out to you down in South Florida. He was the first psychiatrist, not psychologist, that I ever saw as a child. I'm saying child. I was like 16 or 17 in high school. And he asked me a question about something I was working through with a parent, and he was like, when they do that, how does this make you feel? And I was like, I don't know. And so he put a lovely feeling wheel in front of me. And if you don't know what a feeling wheel is, or a wheel of emotion, it's the same thing. You can Google that and steal one off of Google Images. I have one in my phone at all times, and I still will use it occasionally when the emotional goop is too thick for me to kind of wade through. But the saying and I think you probably know the saying, name entertainment, like, name the emotion to tame the emotion, it can be challenging when you're new to this work, and articulating your emotions wasn't something that was welcomed in childhood. So you quite literally struggle to say, I am feeling frustrated. I am feeling curious. like, it's hard to understand like what those emotions are if you weren't allowed to express them growing up. So use a feeling wheel. that is going to be your best friend.
Yeah.
So I just want to spread that word, because
Also
it's
a great way to expand your vocabulary.
great way to expand your, and I say this, I get parenting questions a lot, which sometimes, full transparency, I don't always feel, what's the word? Like imposter
Equipped?
syndrome. Yeah. Thank you. I don't always feel equipped because it's like, I'm not a parent. And I'm not like a child expert in psychology by no means. But I will say this, what I do know about a little bit of child psychology is that if we can equip our children to name their emotions, they're less susceptible as adults to things like anxiety and depression. So the feeling wheel, if you're going to use that and you do have kids, in the center of the feeling wheel are like the big emotions that a 4-year-old can name: anger, sadness, things like that, happy.
Yeah.
And so teach them from a very young age, like point to what you're feeling on the wheel, and allow them to be able to express and explore all these different colors and feelings and sensations of these emotions, because it allows them to, you're basically training them to be little adults, which is what you want. You want them to be able to say, Mom, I'm feeling angry. This is what I need right now. Right. And they're not going to be able to do that if you don't demonstrate it, one. And so take them on this journey with you, because that's huge.
Yeah. Agreed.
Cool.
Love that.
Self-love tips. That's how we're going to wrap up today's episode with some feel-good self-love.
Oh my God. What makes you feel, what practices do you engage in, or when do you feel the most in love with yourself?
Oh my God. A bath.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good juicy bath with all the fixins, like salts, Epsom's, salts, essential oils.
Why does that make you feel in love
that
with yourself?
It feels good. It makes me feel like, I think the reason I love bath, like, one, there's just something about water energetically for me that's so like, I don't even know how to explain it.
I should mention that she is a water sign.
I am a water sign. I'm trying to figure out if that's like for sure correlated. Yeah. But, yeah. So I love a good bath. I think because I quiet all the noise. Like I'll put some music on my phone, but I'm not like on my phone. I purposefully like do some sensory deprivation. So like lights off, eyes closed. Sometimes I'll even go under the water and just like, it becomes like very fishbowl-y under the water. 'Cause and so it feels nice to just like, you want to know what it is as I'm describing this? When I'm in the bath, I feel like time stops. Even though it doesn't. It's like, this is me time, and I get so internal and pull away from all the noise of the world that it feels so good to just like literally unplug. So yeah, I feel the most love doing things like that. Same sensation comes up when I go for a massage. It's like the same vibe. It's like, the world doesn't exist right now. I'm just
I think
here.
what's really cool about that for you, and I hope that this resonates with others, if this is not something that people practice, is committing to spending isolated time alone with pretty minimal distractions. Because if you're able to connect with yourself, and maybe you're not spending that time, maybe you're not spending that time in the bath or in the massage thinking about loving
Maybe
yourself.
it's nature.
Right. But maybe you're not like focused on yourself in the moment, but just being able to enjoy your own company can build a relationship with yourself that really deepens your appreciation of who you are in the world. Like, I really do believe that, because if we build friendships and even romantic relationships off of like continued time spent with these people, and we come to like them even more as we spend more time with them, and we like them even more when we do new things with them, and we like how that feels, and all of a sudden you're 6 months in and you feel like you really know this person, and therefore you have way more compassion and love for them. It's going to be the exact same experience with yourself.
Yeah. What about you? What's your, where do you feel most self-love? I'm so curious.
I feel it in probably 3 different ways that stand out to me. So one is definitely like dancing, like putting music on.
Yes.
I gotta have socks on my feet for like maximum mobility.
Slippage. Yeah.
Yeah, I need slippage. And interesting to know is that preferably I feel most connected to myself, and I feel the most like I'm getting the most out of my like music engagement experience if I'm not dancing in front of a mirror. I don't want that. And maybe
I
that's
love
just
that.
from like dance trauma where I'm like
I
forced
agree.
to look at
I
myself in
so
the mirror.
get that.
I don't want to look actually when I look at myself in a mirror because I'm like, oh, that was like a really cool move. I want to see if I can recreate that. I totally get in my head and I'm no longer thinking about how I feel moved by what's going on.
Right.
I instead start freaking out. Honestly,
Like
I
that
don't know
line
better.
wasn't pretty. My leg wasn't at 90 degrees.
Yeah, and I just feel better when I'm like fucking circling around the couch and stuff, and I'm just moving. Like it makes me feel most connected to myself. I'm not necessarily thinking like you're such a bad bitch, like look at you go. It's more like I feel connected and I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing as like a human being, which is just like reconnecting with self at its purest form. I also love myself most after making like a really delicious meal for myself. It feels very like a direct act of nurturing for self. I love that ability to take care of myself, and to be totally honest, that is not something that I have been very skilled at my entire life. I did not know how to cook for myself. And then when I did start cooking for myself at like post college, I wasn't good at it. So this is truly a labor of love that is developed over time that I feel really proud of.
I love that.
I have one more.
Go.
My third is, and this is probably the time that I actually reflect on why I like myself out loud, privately. But it's after having really good chats with like friends of mine or really good time spent with friends, because I can feel how connected that we both are after those moments. And I like to give myself a little bit of an appreciation. One, it's like, I love this person. I'm so lucky to have this person in my life. But I also like to give myself a little bit of credit that like part of this magic connection that I feel with them has 50% to do with me. And I deserve that.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. That's how I feel every week when we get off recording this show.
Me too. Me too.
Oh,
Same to you.
I miss you.
I love you too. I know, it's so weird that we can't cuddle and do skin contact.
Oh, by the way, I've been meaning to tell you, Jax's spot is here too.
Oh, really? I'm telling you,
gosh, yeah.
there is something that is
spot.
incredibly soothing. Okay, so Alex
third
just
eye.
pointed to like, it's the third eye spot. For me, it's like between the eyebrows, and it could literally disarm me. It can disarm me.
So for Bree's future partner, whoever you are, if she's pissed, just rub her between the brows.
Rub
Like,
me between the
you.
brows, and I will calm down. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. What?
Yeah, me too. I was
question?
thinking, like, what are our self-love practices have in common?
Boundaries.
It's time spent alone.
Time spent alone. And I was going to say like boundaries, because for the longest time I wanted more space in my life to be able to have that alone time truly, like without feeling like I need to reach for this or that, or I have to get back to the person. And so like boundaries has really helped. It is a version of self-love because it gives you the opportunity to create that space and the time to be on your own and do what you need to do. Yeah, and I wanted to add to the like dancing. Another time that I feel really connected to myself is when I brush my teeth at night. I dance and I tell myself all the things I want to hear, basically, and I pump up my dreams for the future. And it allows me to go to bed in a really nice mood, because something just like to sprinkle this in there, like I really struggled with insomnia with sleep for a long time, and I still kind of do. Like it's something that I'm still trying to build a relationship with. And lately, I've started to realize, like, I go to bed because of my insomnia that I've experienced throughout my life. I usually go to bed kind of anxious, like, fuck, am I going to get a good night's sleep or not? And about a month ago, I was like, okay, wait a second. Let's hold those thoughts accountable. And let's start thinking, like, I'm going to sleep great. I'm such a great sleeper. And, like, speak that way instead of, like, just being in this mindset of I'm already shitting the bed in sleep. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to be great. Yeah. So having a really good PM practice. So like I said, like doing that brushing the teeth thing and like dancing and allowing myself to like be in a good energy when I lay my head on my pillow has been really important. And it's I'm not going to say that I'm like an amazing sleeper. I'm getting like a full, really rested amount of time. But I will say this, I enjoy going to bed so much more now because I'm not anxious getting into bed. So
yeah,
that is a
because
form of
it's filled
self-love.
It's filled with practices that you enjoy.
Yeah. And that put me in a state where I feel peaceful. I feel happy. I feel excited for the future. So I'm not going to bed in this like frustration already of like, am I going to sleep well or not? It's like, we're just already in a good mood and let's enjoy this good mood and the rest will take care of itself, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, that's also been a really powerful self-love practice because sleep is so important. And like I said before, if beating ourselves up worked, it would have worked by now. And so I started catching myself kind of in this like shitty mood before bed because I was anticipating, and thus by anticipating it, creating that self-fulfilling prophecy of like, I don't sleep well at night. So it's like how those little tweaks, like it sounds so silly. It sounds so like, I don't know what the word is, flippant kind of like, yeah, okay, really, like me changing my thoughts is going to make that, but it does. It makes a difference. So, yeah.
I agree. I think that that's so important, especially in the act of like, okay, for a beginner of someone who is embarking on self-love practices, if you are going to go similar routes than to what Alex and I have described, which is like spending time alone, doing things that make you feel connected to yourself alone, maybe taking yourself out on a date, a hike, a movie alone, all of these things. If you are brand new about this and typically your like narrative the monologue that plays in your head is like quite negative, you are going to notice, I can almost guarantee it, you're going to notice that voice sort of poking fun at what you're doing. Like, this is so stupid.
Yep.
This is really lame. Like, that's so stupid that you're taking yourself out. Like, you're so fake. This is so dumb. Like, just allow those thoughts, notice them, don't judge them. They're a part of an older practice of yours that are showing up while you're trying to introduce a brand new practice, and arguably a brand new practice that is much kinder to you than you have been to yourself so far. So acknowledge it. And you don't need to, if you don't know how to radically reframe it and shift it into something positive just yet, that's okay. But if you can at least acknowledge it, don't judge it, and allow it to like exit the room, that would be good enough for now.
Yeah.
Eventually.
And go ahead.
What?
I was going to say it's a protector part.
It is. No, it definitely is. I know. It definitely is. It's a part of you that wants to sort of stay stuck.
Yeah,
you know?
It's comfortable.
Doing new things.
Yeah.
It's scary. Doing new things, it's scary. It's scary to introduce new practices in your life. It's scary to try to be a kinder version to yourself, because it just feels like, what the fuck's the point? It's not going to change anything. But if you, like you said earlier, if you never change up the ingredients, you're always going to get the same shitty dish every time.
And that's kind of where I got to. Like when the whole thing with my narcissistic ex went down, I remember this so well. I just got to a place where I was ready to try anything. I was like, I don't even care anymore. You're telling me to meditate? I'm going to freaking figure out how to meditate. You're telling me to journal? I'm going to freaking figure out how to journal. Like, I just didn't give any fucks anymore, because I was so determined to change my relationship with myself and my future that I did not care. It was like, okay, yeah, you're telling me to reframe my thoughts. You're telling me to breathe. I'll freaking do it. And sometimes we need to get to that place. Like, sometimes we need to be, barreled over by, talking about waves, like these waves of emotion, these waves of life experience, before we get to a place where we are desperate enough for the end result that we want, that we will allow the ego mind to shut up, right? And allow it to take a break. So, like, to piggyback off of what Brie was saying, and she said it so well, don't judge it, allow it to be there, give it permission to take a break. Literally, just say, like, look, I hear you, protector part. I get that this is outside of your comfort zone. You feel kind of weird doing this. Totally valid. I'm going to ask for the next hour and a half. You clock out, and I'll see you in an hour and a half. Right? It's like, just give it permission to chill. And when you validate it like that, and when you give it the permission to chill, you'll be surprised at how much that allows you to move forward and actually enjoy doing whatever you're deciding to do in that moment. Because it's when we try and say, don't think like that, don't think like that, oh my God, I need to do this, when we won't validate it, and then that turns into shame for having those thoughts, we're cutting ourselves short again. So it's like more compassion, more curiosity, more love. It all starts there.
Yeah.
The end.
That's a beautiful way to wrap this up.
That's so beautiful to wrap
it up.
We
we have at least 3 more weeks of like Q&A podcast episodes. So if you want to get in touch with us again, you can go to our social media accounts, specifically Instagram at Ditch the Script Pod. You can go to our website, www.ditchthescriptpod.com. If you are liking Q&A style episodes, then go to Apple Podcasts and rate, review our show.
Yes.
That would be really helpful. We would love to see what you think. If you have critiques, that's cool. We welcome it. Just don't be mean. Don't be an asshole. But like, we can
deliver your feedback with
opinion.
love. It's practice for your relationship.
Yeah. Oh my God. Glennon Doyle signs off her podcast, and this, like, to me, it's the most adorable way ever. She it's a clipped recording, so it enters in the same way. She doesn't say it differently every time, but she's like, if you love the episode, rate, review. We'd love to hear it. And if you didn't like it, that's okay. Don't worry about it. And she just like disappears.
Yeah. I love it.
So cute.
That's so cute.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add?
That's it.
Oh.
Love you guys. See you / hear us on the next one. And that's
See
it.
you.
Bye.
Love you. Goodbye.